Hi, everybody. Appreciate you joining me, and I hope you're doing well. I'd really hoped to do a reading update, but I was kind of embarrassed because I abandoned Herodotus. Yeah. I was really enjoying book one and the theme of hubris, and I understood where it was all linked into the build up to the Greco-Persian Wars and even the digressions I was enjoying. Then I got into book two, and suddenly Herodotus was writing about Egypt and all these digressions about the rate of silt deposition from the Nile and speculation about which areas of Egypt might once have been covered by water, and I just couldn't figure out what any of this had to do with the Greco-Persian Wars. I kept waiting for it to tie back to that, and it didn't seem to be happening, so I just kind of lost my patience with it. I'm getting cranky in my old age, but yeah, I was kind of embarrassed about that. I've been reading other things, but yeah, I was just too ashamed to do a reading update right now. So instead, I'm going to answer one of the tags I've received. This one's going to be the Filmtastic February Tag. A little visual aid I always do. And I was tagged by Trav of the Book Builds and More channel. And Trav just recently returned to BookTube. We're really glad he did that. Has a great channel. I highly recommend checking it out. I will link that below, of course. And it looks like the tag was created by, I'm not sure what his name is, but the channel's name is Back Away from the Donkey, which is kind of funny. Yeah, I wasn't familiar with the channel. I had a look at it. Looks interesting. I subscribed. I will link the information below. I recommend having a look at that as well. So thank you, Trav, for the tag, and thank you, Back Away from the Donkey, for writing an interesting one. So with no further ado, I'll get into the prompts here. Prompt number one, your first memory of seeing a film at Pictures/Cinema. Okay, we kind of lived in the middle of the boonies, so we didn't go too often. Most of my early memories of film were from television and home video and so forth. From the very occasional times we did go, my earliest memories are very fragmentary. It seems like one of them was E.T., and another one from around the same time, I think, was one of the Star Trek films, and I'm guessing it was probably 3, Search for Spock. I was born in 79, so timing, I think, would be about right for fragmentary memories. Funny thing is, the theater we went to at that time was located in a shopping mall. I don't know if those even exist anymore, but there was a giant fountain in the center of the mall right outside the entrance to the theater, and I was always far more enthralled by that fountain than I was the films we saw, if that tells you anything. But yeah, those are my earliest cinema memories, such as they are. Okay, prompt number 2. A book about film can be behind the scenes, an autobiography, or a fiction book that includes film as a main subject. Well, I have several ebooks about directors that I like, such as Hitchcock, Tarkovsky, Kubrick. But I kept this to physical book that I own. This is just a Norton anthology of film criticism, and it's just that a collection of essays about various historically important films, and I just enjoy going through that. Every time I see one of those films, I'll usually read the essay before I see the film and after watching it. So, yeah, don't know what more to say about that. Moving on. Prompt number 3, a novelization or tie-in book. Okay, I have read very few novelizations, but there is one that has always really stuck out for me. A novelization of Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Yeah, the original Star Trek movie. The Motionless Picture, or Where Nomad Has Gone Before. Why does that one stick out for me so much? It is just bizarre. I had heard rumors that it was actually ghostwritten by Alan Dean Foster, even though Gene Roddenberry is credited as the author on the cover. But my understanding is that is all shiznit, that it was indeed penned by Gene Roddenberry. I guess that rumor might have grown because I think Alan Dean Foster got a story credit on the script or something like that, and he was just kind of the novelization guy at that time. You can find his name all over those big blockbuster novelizations. But yeah, there's just all kinds of choice things, like we get inside Kirk's head and get some sexual musings that I personally didn't really need, and we find out that the humans that live on Earth in the 23rd century evidently live in these weird free love communes that call themselves the New Humans. And I don't know, they go around being beautiful and evolved and sexually liberated or whatever. It's just, I don't know if this was just Gene Roddenberry being weird at his age, or if it was just that time, that everyone was spending too many retreat weekends at Esalen and being, enlightened and evolved and all that. I guess this would have been the late 70s. But it's just very strange. And I've got to say that the description of the transporter accident is absolute nightmare fuel as well. But that's actually more of a positive in my twisted reckoning. But yeah, as far as novelizations go, I've read very few, but I've got to admit that one made an impression. All right, I guess I'll move on here. Prompt number 4. A film about writers or writing. Okay, I'm sure there are far more quality films that would fit this prompt, but the one that immediately came to mind for me is Throw Mama from the Train. It is certainly, it at least involves writers and writing, but it is much more a showcase for Anne Ramsey, who puts on a bravura performance as, I guess you could say, just the most obnoxious old bat ever. I don't know, Olivia Soprano might give her a run for her money on that one, but yeah, she's just a hilarious nightmare. The movie's kind of a parody of Hitchcock's throw throw strangers from the train. Strangers on a train. But yeah, Mama steals the show. She's just something else. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. You'll never be able to hear the word sultry without thinking, the night was sultry again. But yeah, don't know what else to say. I'm hearing Mama's horrible, horrible voice in my head now. But I'll move on. Prompt number, which one was I on here? 5. A film that brings back fond memories. I guess I'll go with the Muppet movie, the original one. I mean, first of all, it's the Muppets, what's not to love, but I guess it's just the timing of it. It's one of the first VHSs we got when we first got VCR, and I watched it a lot. I even had the soundtracks of that movie on vinyl before we had that VHS. And that movie, it's your standard road movie, of course, but it's just full of horrible puns and visual gags, and I just love that stuff. I guess the kids would call it dad humor nowadays, but yeah, it's just wonderful. Highly recommended. Great memories. Prompt number 6. A film that made you want to read the book. Okay, I think I will go with The Name of the Rose, with Sean Connery and a very young Kristen Slater. And I guess when I saw the film, it just jumped out at me because it was about medieval setting, this monastery and monks and murder mystery, just so many things I enjoy that I wanted to read Umberto Eco novel. And I'm sorry, I couldn't find my beat up copy. It actually has a cover that I like better, but anyway, there's a copy. And I found this highly erudite brick of a book. I mean, the film follows the basic plot for the most part, but the book's just loaded with all these details about the life of a monastery and theological debates and heresies and semiotics and medieval texts, and it's a postmodern novel, so it deals with structures of meaning and everything. It's just, there's a lot of untranslated Latin. I just love that book. So yeah, that film made me want to read it though, and I'm glad it did. So there you go. Moving on. Prompt number 7. A book that made you want to watch the film. You know, there haven't been too many. I'm more of a reader than I am a film watcher, although I enjoy film. And there haven't been too many books that have made me want to run out and watch the film. I have to reach pretty far back to think of one. And I don't know if you're familiar with this series, The Chronicles of Prydain. I guess it'd be would it be young adult, or I read it as a kid, but they're Lloyd Alexander series. This is book number 2, Black Cauldron, and it was loosely inspired by the Mabinogion, or however you pronounce it, the collection of medieval legends, Welsh ones. But yeah, I love that set of books, and I love the Black Cauldron, and I guess there was a film that was made. It's a Disney animated film in the mid 80s sometime. And I wanted to see that so bad as a kid. And I could never find it in any of the video stores and never saw it on TV. And always wanted to so badly. And I guess I finally saw it decades later. And it was okay, I guess. It kind of crammed the plot of the first two books together and Disneyfied it a little bit, but yeah, it was, yeah. I don't know, it wasn't worth, pining over the way I did as a kid, but yeah, that's one example of a book that actually made me want to see a film. Okay, prompt number 8. Films based on a book story that bear no resemblance to the source. This is probably stretching it, but I'll go with The Shining. It's the Stanley Kubrick adaptation of the King novel. And I don't know if you can really say it bears no resemblance. I mean, there are some basic plot points shared, but a lot of people complain that the character of Jack Torrance is quite different. And of course, the Kubrick film's much more visually driven than the novel's going to be. But I like them both. I always have. I'm also one of those people that can take or leave coffee, so make of that what you will. But one, I don't know if you'd call it an analysis, but one remark I've heard that I kind of get behind is that the Shining book very much gets in the head of a Jack Torrance who is an alcoholic wringing his hands over how he wants to do right by his family. He wants to be a good man and all this. Whereas the film is more from the perspective of the family members that have to live with the blasted alcoholic. So I think there might actually be some truth to that. When a lot of people complain about Jack Nicholson's Jack Torrance just being crazy from the get-go, maybe we're seeing him from a outsider's perspective. I kind of like that. But yeah, that's what I'll answer that one. There are probably better examples, but that's just the one that jumped to mind. Prompt number 9, recommend 5 films. I always hate these questions. The desert island question, basically. I tend to like a lot of older films, but I usually watch those on television or streaming. I just grabbed 5 that I happen to have hard copies of. They're not necessarily favorites, but they're all definitely worth seeing, so I'll run through them here. David Lynch's Blue Velvet. It's about, of course, kid comes home from college when his father has a cardiac event and finds a severed ear in a field and goes exploring and discovers the ugly underbelly of this idyllic lumber town. A lot of David Lynch weirdness along the way. I could name a lot of David Lynch films. I like him, but that's the one I happen to grab. And Brandy, if you're listening to this, I know you're going to take me to task for naming this one. Yeah, there's a lot of violence and sexual assault, certainly. Dennis Hopper, I think his performance is great. It's kind of comedic, really, at least to me. Maybe I'm just sick, but yeah, I think it's kind of goofy. And I'm not much of a beer drinker, but I kind of want a Pabst when I think of that movie, so enough said. Moving on. Got 2001 here. Stanley Kubrick film. I could name a lot of Stanley Kubrick films, but 2001's always been special for me. I like science fiction. I don't really subscribe to the kind of aspirational view of humanity evolving and going to the stars that movie's kind of trying to project, but at least I don't anymore. But it's still an incredible film. I know a lot of people probably find it boring nowadays, but I like it. Highly recommended. At the Darren Aronofsky film, The Fountain. This one, a lot of people probably think it's kind of pretentious, and frankly, it probably is, but it's about a scientist trying to come to terms with his wife's terminal illness and accepting mortality, and it's tied to a past story about conquistadors in Central America and a future story about a guy on an interstellar space vessel. And I guess you can make these connections as literal or metaphorical as you want. I'm not really sure at times. It's really kind of a mess of a film in a way, but I'm always a sucker for films that are about loss and coming to terms with mortality, so I enjoy it. Recommend it. Next, along those lines, I've got Tarkovsky's adaptation of Stanislaw Lem's Solaris novel. I would have named Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo, which is definitely a favorite, but Trav went and named that one, so I thought I'd come up with something different. I've always seen Solaris in similar terms. It's science fiction. It's about the difficulties of communicating with a truly alien intelligence that's not at all anthropomorphic, but in attempting to communicate with these humans, it often generates these images that go to very deep feelings of guilt and loss that these people have experienced. So yeah, I see it as similar to Vertigo because it is about just that, dealing with grief and loss and moving on. And like I said, I'm always just kind of a sucker for those kind of stories. Probably have my reasons. Probably wouldn't have to think too hard of why, but moving on. Last, I got Ridley Scott's Alien. It's the original, starring Jonesy the Cat. I don't know what to say. See it as a classic horror flick, really. I guess you could call it science fiction, but I see it as horror. And a lot of people like the second one, Aliens, better. I like it, but it's more of an action film. I kind of like the more haunted house, isolated, quiet, getting picked off one by one thing that's going on with the first film. So yeah, I threw it in there. So I guess I'm limping to the end here rather than tag others. I have no idea who's done this already. I'm just going to name some people that I have talked movies with before. Scott of the Some Other Character channel, of course. I'm pretty sure he's been tagged with this one. Peter the Book Lover. I think you might have been tagged as well, but I know we've discussed movies. Gareth from Book Songs and Other Magic. I don't know if he'd be interested in doing the tag or if he's already done it, but I know we've chatted about movies a little bit. And last, I'll name Dave from Book Blather. He doesn't do too many tags, but we have chatted about movies a little bit, and I don't know, maybe someone needs to do another belly dancing tag to get Dave back into the tag game. That was something. Poor Olive, looking on, trying to figure out what these humans are up to now. But I digress. Those are just some names that came to mind. Anybody else that wants to do it is absolutely welcome, and no pressure to the ones I did name. Just throwing out what came to mind. So thank you for joining me, as always. And if you're interested in a puzzle update, stick around. This is probably running too long as it is, but if not, bid you farewell now. Take care. And the rest of you, I will see you after the edit. All right, I'm back, and here's your update. The end is definitely in sight. Try to get in a little closer here for you. I really like this image. I will be preserving this one. And when I get around to doing another reading update, you might be seeing another project at the end of that one. This probably should have been a reading update, but I failed another of life's little tests and I was embarrassed. You'd think I'd be accustomed to that by now, but what do you know, it still hurts. I kid, kind of. But I'm rambling on. Thank you for joining me. Really appreciate it. I know this one's dragging on. It's late. I'm a little punchy. I apologize for the blather factor. But I will hopefully speak with you again next time. Until then, take care.
But am I not turtly enough for the Turtle Club?